welcome, guys, to another week of Paranormal Pals. And I see we've already got someone that's jumped in, so
Cool.
we'll just wait until a few more people come on. Hopefully a few more people do, and then we'll get started. How was your week, Josh?
Pretty busy.
Yeah.
I finished up a trial this week. Have to do another one in a couple of weeks.
The weeks are just flying past.
Lo Marie says hello.
Oh, hey. Hey, Lois. How are you? You're the first in by the looks of it. Oh, we got somebody else that's just joined in. Say hi, guys, because we can't see who you are until you say hi. Oh, Colette.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, Colette. How are you? You all good?
Lois is going to be here for as long as she can stay awake. Well, she's got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, apparently.
That's no fun. They'll meet me in a couple of weeks.
Oh, really? I have enough trouble getting out of bed at 6 o'clock, mate, honestly.
I have to fly to Napier for a day.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I like going to Napier. I just don't like getting up at 3 o'clock to get the 6 o'clock, 6:30 flight.
Have you got a conference down there or something? Or are you doing some testing, or what are you doing?
I'm doing some checks for some new products coming into Hastings, so they need me to.
Is it just a day trip?
Yes. Might see if I can
good.
see some of the customers as well and see how they're getting on.
So I see we got another 2 people that have jumped in. Say hi, guys. So
Hi,
we know
everybody.
who you is.
Oh, nice. Home Alone.
So you can have us on full volume. Oh, God, I'm not sure you want to do that.
Cops might come when their neighbours call you. Call the cops on you.
So welcome to Lois and Colette and the other 2 people that we've got who we don't know because we can't see, but say good evening, guys, so we know who we're talking to.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. No need to be shy. We'll get started shortly. Just give it another couple of minutes. So next week, we've got our Fortean. He likes to be called Fortean. I think that's how you pronounce it, isn't it, Tash? Fortean investigator, Fortean, something like that. Hunts cryptids.
The cryptid hunter from New Zealand.
Yeah. Eh?
From New Zealand.
From New Zealand, yeah. So that'll be an interesting episode next week. See what he's got to say. I believe he did some investigating outside of Skinwalker Ranch in the USA. So not inside because you can't get in, but it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say.
Yeah, there's an interesting program which is near, not close, but near to Skinwalker Ranch. It's called Blind Frog Ranch.
I've seen that advertised. I haven't watched that, however.
Yeah, the geologist is not very good.
The what?
They have like a cave that has flooded. It's like an underwater cave, and they're looking for treasures. It's kind of like Oak Island. Like they keep finding artifacts and stuff.
Oh,
Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
It's too dangerous to explore. And it's close to Skinwalker Ranch, I believe. It's not too far away.
Oh, okay. That could be quite freaky.
But it's in the vicinity, and it has weird stuff happen all the time. Every time they try and go in or, trying to extract stuff out, floods. Oh, Lois watches it. Interesting program.
I might have to. I've seen it advertised, but I keep missing it, so I might have to. I might have to jump in and have a nosy at that one.
Yeah, imagine Oak Island, but in the desert with potential like UFOs and random stuff happening.
Oh, wow. How interesting.
Yeah, high electromagnetic field. But anyway.
It's 5 past. Should we get started?
Sorry?
Should we get started?
We should get started. We've got some people.
Get started. Okay, so, guys, this was a subject that I thought we should talk about because, how do I put it without saying it's all shit? just because what I'm seeing on the TV is kind of really blurring the lines between what these particular practices are for and what they actually do and when they should be used. So what I'm going to try and do is practice. So we're going to talk about cleansings, which I hate that word, so I term them as clearings. So we're going to talk about cleansings/clearings. Then we're going to go on to talk about smudging, because that's completely being packaged up into something that it isn't. Then we're going to talk about blessings. And then we're going to go on and we're going to talk about banishments, and we're going to talk briefly on exorcisms. So I'm not telling you guys how to do this. I'm giving you some background knowledge on it, and I'm going to try and make the connections between what it actually does and what it should be used for. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to check my notes as I go because I don't want to miss anything out. Excuse me. So let's talk about cleansings and clearings first. So the first thing I want to say about this is it is so much more than your intent and chucking some holy water around or chucking some incense around the place or anything like that. This is actually a ritual in itself. Cleansing and clearing a space is a ritual, okay? It's been used by many, many different cultures right around the world, and used by many, many different religions as well. So it's not just for the Christian religion. It's not just for the Wiccan religion. Nothing like remotely like that. What cleansings and clearings are is actually a ritual practice of removing residual energy and purifying a space. Okay? So there's so many ways you can do this, and there's so many different tools that can be employed to do it with. And normally they are based on the person's belief that is conducting the practice, as well as the people in the home where the practice is being conducted. So it's normally based around their beliefs. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about this in respect of, I need to make this really clear. So for instance, spiritually cleansing or clearing a home using Christian practices of using holy water or burning frankincense and myrrh will have very little effect if the person's home and the people who live in it are Jewish, okay, and they don't ascribe to the Christian faith. So that's where you've got to be very careful. I mean, a lot of people don't have religious practices nowadays, and that makes it a whole heap easier. But yeah, normally the practice that's used is based on the belief of the person that's using it, and needs to be tailored to the people who are living in that home so that they feel it's done something and can believe in the practice itself. So as I said, there's a whole heap of different ways to clear or cleanse a space, but it's definitely a ritual, all right? So you can do it by burning herbs or plants. Now you can do this with having the plant material in a dried form and compounded in a mortar and pestle and made into what we call a raw incense. So what I mean by that is the raw incense is like in a very powdery form, and it's sprinkled on top of a hot charcoal, and it makes lots and lots of smoke, which is what you want when you're using this particular tool to do a clearing or a cleansing. Okay. Using stick incense doesn't actually give you enough smoke, because what you want is you want all the smoke getting into the corners of every room. So and let's get one thing straight. Sorry, I'm just going to go off on a bit of a tangent. I don't do this as part of my paranormal investigating practices. I don't do paranormal investigating for this reason. My intent of my investigating is very different. So my spiritual beliefs and all that sort of thing is left at the door when I enter into a place. I have been asked to do it on occasions. And over the last 45 years, I've done lots of them. Hardly any of them in a paranormal investigating capacity. I think I've done about 2 in a paranormal investigating capacity. But I don't paranormally investigate from a spiritual perspective. So I don't bring this into my investigating practices. I'd rather I brought somebody else in to do it. So
yeah, I'd just like to say that I never do this on any investigation I go on to. We'll probably talk a bit about it later. Some of the investigations I've done, the public ones, we've done a blessing, but we'll talk about that later, which is different from banishing and cleansing and exorcisms.
Yep. Okay, so when you normally do one and you're using raw incense to get lots of smoke, you would open up every single drawer, every single cupboard, every single wardrobe. You would keep the windows shut when you were doing this. And I've seen this on the telly where they open up all the windows and they do it. That's not what you need to be doing. You need to be keeping everything, all the exterior doors and windows shut until a stage that you get the place so full, it's like a fog, literally. It can be like a fog. And then when you are finished and you have done every single room and you have made sure that every cupboard, drawer, everything has been open, wardrobe, and when you've done the house from top to bottom and you finish, then you go through and you open up every single window. Now, the belief of that is that smoke then takes whatever is there negative energy-wise, and I'm not talking about an external energy. Tash and I were just having this conversation before we started. I'm talking about, and I made this analogy, like if Tash and I were living together and we were having heaps and heaps of arguments for a 2 or 3 month period, and I moved out and took all my stuff with me, then that would be the basis for her to start thinking, well, she might have taken all her stuff, but I can still feel her here. So I'm going to do a clearing to get rid of that residual stagnant energy that's here. Okay? So it purifies the space. So there's other methods rather than just using raw herbs or raw incense, as we call it. You can use crystals. You can use sound as another one that's been used before. You can use sound. You can even use, believe it or not, eggs. Yes, eggs are absolutely fantastic. You can use salt and you can use blessed water, and that's just a few of the different ways that you can spiritually cleanse or clear a home. My preferred method is to use raw incense and blessed water. And
what's
making both
between raw incense and, say, something you just buy at the store?
The difference is that one, it probably doesn't have, the incense that you buy at the store probably has chemicals in it. Okay. If you get a natural incense, then it won't do, but it doesn't give you the amount of smoke that you need, because you need to bathe this whole house in smoke. So I don't even know if anyone has ever seen raw incense burning on hot charcoal in a thurible. And it gets swinged by the Catholic Church, and quite a bit of smoke comes out of it.
Yeah,
that's the sort of thing we're talking.
I've seen that. That was usually on special occasions, though. Usually Easter.
What's that?
And that. It was only done on special occasions, usually Easter and Ash Wednesday and things like that.
And things like that, yeah. Okay. I'm not Catholic. My dad was, though. So that's the sort of incense. That's the sort of incense that we're talking about. Something that gives off heaps of smoke. So both of those methods, either using blessed water and creating a ritual incense to be used to do that, is a ritual in itself. Creating both of those things is a ritual in itself. So you're creating them using a ritual, and then you're actually going through the property and doing the cleansing or the clearing And that's a ritual as well. So ritual is surrounded through all of this. It's not about just chucking some water around and saying, "Be gone, nasty beings." It's a hell of a lot more than that.
Like electing a pope. That's a ritual. That
like
sort
what?
of thing. Electing the new pope.
Exactly.
That's a lot of fanfare and tradition and ritual, white smoke, fancy outfits.
That's the whole 9 yards. You don't need all fancy outfits, but they put on their ritual robes, and as they're doing that, they've been purified, and they're purifying themselves as well at the same time. It's all, yeah. So what is really important when you're doing this is to remember that it's the act of clearing a space and purifying that energy within that space, and that's a ritual. Okay, so it involves actions. The actions, the intent, and the spoken word have also got to be taken into consideration and utilized. So just burning the herbs and the incense, or sprinkling some water around and some salt, and saying a few words of intent is going to have little to no effect on your desired outcome. So the components, I guess what I'm trying to say is the components of a ritual include actions, words, visualizations, and being really well versed in raising energy and knowing how to direct that energy towards its goal. It's so much more than just walking around uttering a few words of intent while waving the smoke around or splashing water around, okay? The big thing that I want to say here is conducting a clearing or a cleansing is not used to remove ghosts, spirits, entities, or demons. It is used to clear the space or the object of residual energy only.
So would you say it was a way to basically show intent? So if you were to do something like this before an investigation, you would have an intent of hoping to speak to some ghosts or some spirits, but not necessarily have anything like negative, like a sort of protection type thing.
No, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to clear things out with a clearing or a cleansing, not bring things in. So if you're talking about wanting to speak to spirits and things, you're actually trying to bring them in to do that. What we're doing here is we're just clearing stagnant energy out. That's it. Getting the space in the property back to a level playing field. A neutral playing field, if you like. Okay.
We got 6 people. We know 3 people. Who are the 3 mysteries? Who are the 3 mystery watchers lurking in the background? Come say hi.
6 people, have we?
You got. Well, I just scared one off. Down to 5. So who's the mystery 2? Who's the sneaky mystery 2? Or they're just listening?
Sneaky mystery 2. Okay, so let's that kind of brings me onto something that's a real pet peeve of mine, and it's called smudging.
Is it almost as bad as not time stamping things?
No. Well, yes, actually, it probably is. It's probably worse. So, as we know, indigenous cultures like the Native American Indians use smudging. Okay, so there's 4 different plants that are used in smudging, or 4 different main plants that are used in smudging. Now, smudging, again, clears and purifies the mind, your space, and the energy around you. Okay, so it clears a space, a person, or an object for a ceremony. Smudging is used before ceremonies. Okay, so when anybody that is performing any ceremony or ritual does anything, the first thing they will do is they will set up a sacred space to do that ceremony or ritual in, if you like, right?
So we just have a quick question from Colette.
Yes.
Just clears the air?
Basically, yeah. And I'll get on to that with regards to the smudging, because there's a really interesting fact about smudging and clearing the air. So it's used to get you ready for a ceremony. It's used to get your space ready for a ceremony, or it's used to get an object ready for a ceremony. And that is traditionally what it is used for in the Native American Indian culture. It's incorporated into rituals, but it's also incorporated into daily life as well. It is a ritual. Smudging is a ritual in itself. It is. So think about merely lighting a sage wand and waving it around does not, again, bring about the desired effect. Intentions have got to be made clear. Prayers are said during the picking of the plants that are going to be used for the smudging, and also prayers are uttered during the ceremony itself. The plants that are used are traditionally white sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and tobacco. They're the 4 main plants. So these can either be used on their own and burnt in a clay pot, normally in a clay pot, again on hot charcoals, or they can be bundled up in a wand, what's commonly referred to as a stick or a wand, wrapped normally with a bunch of cotton around it to keep it all in place.
So
the smoke, sorry, go on.
With the tobacco, it's not the tobacco you buy from down the road, which is very expensive. It's the naturally grown one, the natural plant in Americas. Yeah.
Dead right.
Which is quite rare to get a hold of over here. I mean, you probably wouldn't even be able to import it, I don't think.
You can, but it will get probably nabbed from customs if it's prone to bringing in weevils or any form of bugs, and it'll be irradiated, which means a lot of its kick is going to be gone by the time you get it into your hands. But I used to import cedar and sweetgrass, and sweetgrass normally comes in a big long string, and also white sage in, because I ran an online occult store for about 12, 15 years. So I sold over 200 herbs to practitioners that did things like this. So when it's being smudged, whether or not it's being used in a wand, or if it's being used in an earthen clay bowl, or even an abalone shell, a pawa shell, it's also a feather is employed, and the feather directs the smoke. So you direct the smoke with a feather either over the person, the object, or within that space. So prayers are said during the burning of it as well. Remember, I said this is a ceremony. And it's normally not just done once, it's incorporated into your daily life. It's done on a daily thing. It's to constantly purify you, purify your mind, as well as purifying a space or purifying an object that's going to be used in a ceremony. So smudging would be done by the tribes of what we now know as America, to purify themselves before they went into ceremony. Okay. So burning these plants are not going to remove, again, ghosts, spirits, entities, or demons. I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. It purifies the mind, it purifies the space, it purifies the body, and it purifies the energy surrounding you, an object, or your home. Now, this is the interesting fact. It has actually been proven, and this brings me to what Colette said, just clears the air. There is scientific evidence that supports that the burning of sage reduces airborne bacteria by up to 94%. And that's actually scientifically proven. What I do want to say about
it's antibacterial. It's a natural.
Yeah, it's an antibacterial. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I do have a quick question about the smudging ritual. Do you have to verbalize the prayer or the intention, or can you?
No, it's normally verbalized, because sound has a very important component in ritual as well.
Okay.
So, where ritual magicians will intone things when they do invocation and evocation. You will find a lot of the tribal people had chants, which were quite melodic. So there was a lot of different notes being brought in, and this is all due to sound as well.
Right. Cool.
So this is the part that I want everyone to really seriously think about. This is a practice of a particular culture. Okay. New Age thinking has kind of really bastardized this somewhat. And I really want to make a really strong point about cultural appropriation here. I really can't stress this enough. There's plenty of other plants that you can use for exactly the same purpose, such as good old plain sage or rosemary will do exactly the same thing without appropriating somebody else's culture and their spiritual practices. If you're not a Native American Indian, you really shouldn't be stealing somebody else's spiritual practices and using them in your own. I would recommend that if you don't have any ties to that culture, then use your own ancestral practices instead of robbing another culture of theirs. Conducting a cleansing or a clearing has exactly the same effect, and that's not tied to a particular Indigenous culture's practices. So I kind of liken it to if I was going out and I was starting, I don't know, let me think. If I liken it to using Māori prayers, Māori spiritual practices, and I'm not a Māori, I don't think the Māoris would be very happy about it. Can you imagine how the Indigenous cultures of America feel when everyone just thinks you just light a sage stick, you wave it around, and it's going to get rid of ghosts, when it's not actually the case?
There's actually a shortage of the white sage at one stage because everyone was using it for whatever ritual they felt like throughout the world. So there was a big illegal market for it.
There is. And also where it grows, because it grows in really dry, arid places. So like California, and Arizona, if they get a real big downpour or a wet couple of weeks even, it completely decimates the sage population, the white sage population, because then it starts growing fungi and getting mites and all this sort of thing, and the plants start dying. When I did actually stock white sage, I used to buy it direct from a reservation in America because I knew it was being grown in the right way. I knew it was being picked and prayers and chants were said across the plant as it was being harvested, all the rest of it, because this is a living being, remember? We don't just pull the whole damn thing out of the ground and harvest it. We don't take any more than 1/3 of the plant, or we kill the plant and zap it from most of its energy. So all those sorts of things come into it as well when you're talking about it being used from a cultural perspective. Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking more of like the ethical and sustainable harvesting and sourcing.
Yep. And to be quite honest with you, when we're talking about spiritual practices, ethics should be at the absolute forefront of everybody's mind. And I can't stress that enough. So don't go out and buy white sage and do smudging. Go out and buy some rosemary and some normal sage and burn it on hot charcoals and do a clearing and a cleansing. It's exactly the same as a smudging. Exactly. There's no difference. It's just that smudging has become very popular because of Indigenous American tribal culture becoming very popular. And that started in the 70s. So that just got worse in the 80s with the New Age movement. Has anyone got any questions?
No questions as of yet. No more.
Go on to the next one.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that depending on where I've investigated, when I was investigating, my partner would sage me outside.
That's cool. If that's what you feel
sage
you
the
need
house.
to do.
Saged me. Literally, I'd be standing on the deck at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting saged.
Yep, well, that's perfect. That's perfect. But what I'm saying is try to remember that you're using somebody else's cultural practices. Use your own ancestral practices. And if you don't know what they are, guess what? There's a thing called Google. Go research it. So let's talk about blessings. While clearings and cleansings and smudging is used to clear and purify the space, the mind, or an object, blessings bring in energy, as opposed to the clearings and the smudgings and the cleansings getting rid of stagnant energy. Okay, so we're talking about two different types, complete opposite ends of the spectrum here. Cleansings, clearings, smudgings get rid of stagnant energy, as well as clearing a space and that sort of thing, whereas blessings bring in energy. So when you're doing a blessing, you are bringing happiness and well-being to a space, an object, or an individual. Okay, so it's kind of ironic, to be quite honest with you, when I see people that say that they're bringing in a priest from their local church to bless the new house that they've moved into, when they haven't done any form of spiritual cleansing on the property. So if there is negative energy and you're trying to bring in this good energy and well-being, the two are going to go boom, and they're going to nullify each other. So clear out, get the energy back to a level playing field, and then get the blessing happening and bring in the well-being and the good, so it's not battling against anything. Okay?
So you were like talking previously about beliefs and bringing in someone related to your beliefs. If you're not Māori, would you consider bringing a Maori, I can't remember what they call them.
Kaumatua?
Yeah,
Kaumatua o Tohanga?
Yeah, to come in and clear the space, considering you're on potentially tapu land or whatnot.
Yep, I would, yeah. If I believed in the fact that their beliefs or the way they did things could help me, then yeah. And if I did my own clearing and then blessed my property and nothing happened and it was still there, then I would then start looking at the land. And then in that case, yeah, I would probably look to a kaumatua to come in and deal with it for me.
Get rid of the bad juju.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've got to understand, at this point in time, we're not knowing that there's any bad juju there. We're just getting rid of stagnant, not nice energy, any possible negative residual energy that people or circumstances have dumped in that property or in that space. That's what we're trying to do when we're doing smudgings, cleansings, clearings. When we're doing blessings, we're bringing in well-being and happiness and goodwill into the property. So
yeah. I'd like to add with the blessings, we had some lovely ladies on last week in Renata. They're frightfully good grannies, and they do frightfully good things like frightfully good holidays or spooky holidays or haunted holidays, I think it is. The links are in the last video. Every trip that I have done with them, Renata will do a blessing. So we do an opening blessing, and then we usually do a closed blessing, which was more setting the intent of the investigations. Basically saying, if there are any spirits here, we'll talk to you, but we won't bother you otherwise, sort of thing. We're open to talking to those that want to. If you'd rather not, then we're just going to be in your space for a little bit of time and then we'll leave.
That's pretty much setting your intents, putting your intent out there for that particular point in time. Yeah. I noticed Kelly's just said something really interesting.
Yeah, just pop that up there in Pakaranga.
What sort of weird stuff did you have happening? She's probably typing away frantically there. So while she's typing away frantically, I'll keep going. So the intent of a blessing is to bring in happiness, well-being, and goodwill to a space, a person, or an object. So again, based on the spiritual or religious beliefs of the person conducting the blessing, these can take heaps of different forms, but normally people automatically think of Christianity when they think of someone coming in and doing a blessing. So I find that, as I said, conducting a clearing and then doing a blessing afterwards works really well, because you're not going to have good energy hammering away at negative residual energy, because you've removed that residual energy. That's gone. So it's clear playing field to bring in some goodwill and blessings into the property and the home on the homeowners as well. As I said, you can just have them just banging against each other, and it's really important to get back to get rid of the negative and get back to an even keel playing field before you then start trying to bring in some good stuff. Okay, blessings, again, blessings don't get rid of demons, spirits, or entities at all. Again, they don't. What you'll find quite often is, if there are those things lurking around, you may find that blessings will actually agitate what is already there and create more issues if that space or the individual living within it is already experiencing activity. What tends to happen is it will calm down for a while. Now, when I say a while, it could be 2 or 3 days, it could be 2 or 3 weeks, it could be 2 or 3 months. But in my experience and from what I've heard, it always comes back, and it always comes back with a vengeance if it's just a simple blessing that's been conducted.
Oh, yeah.
And it often ends up being worse than what it was before the blessing was performed. I see Kelly's put up
what
her
weird
comments.
stuff was happening at the time.
Yeah. Bloody hell. No, I wouldn't know, because
there's another question about, would you say blessing would be detrimental? Well, I guess it depends on your intent. If you intend to have demons and run around screaming, then the spirits might not like or take kindly to you and either ignore you or start doing stuff to make you go away. But it's not necessarily detrimental, because you're not banishing anything, you're actually inviting the spirits.
With blessings, remember what I said blessings do. They bring in good things to the space. You're asking good things to come in. That's what a blessing's all about. And what you also have to remember is, wherever you are investigating, you have got to have that building owner in the forefront of your mind at all times. So it's not about what's detrimental to the investigation. It's about what could possibly be detrimental to the actual people who live there. Because at the end of the day, you pack your stuff up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning and you walk out. But these people have to live here. They've got to remain in this property that you've just tooted around with, or done stuff that you don't quite understand, and now you've left them with a right pig's ear of a mess. So if you are going to do these things, you need to make sure you know what you're doing before you do these things. Blessings can be as simple as anointing something or anointing someone with holy water or oil, and uttering a few short phrases of words of intent. Or when blessing a space, such as a temple or a house, they can take the form of a more complex and lengthy ritual. Again, a blessing is a ritual. All these things I'm talking about so far, they're all rituals. Make no mistake about it. The intent and the purpose of what you're doing and saying is sometimes going to determine what's going to actually occur.
Oh, look, Cameron's back.
Evening, hi, Cameron.
So yeah, when you watch these TV programs, and I have experienced this in the US, and you are practicing the blessings and things, please don't tell people negative stuff, like portals are in the building that you work, or, you know, SA offender is ghost spirit thing is in a gym where kids go to, like a youth group. Yeah. If there is
that's a good
something
point.
bad in there, you can't do something about it. Don't tell them that it's like there's this portal to hell or something there, and terrify the people who have to work there or live there or exist there. Give them the information for someone that you know that could actually move that negative energy on.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, when we're talking about negative energy, we're not necessarily talking about an external being, whether it be a ghost, a spirit, a demon, an elemental, or some sort of astral being. We're not talking about that. Okay? So just, you gotta remember that, because this is what's getting twisted a little bit at the moment on TV, with all these TV ghost hunting programs that then say that they're going to go and do a clearing, and they get a medium that comes in and chucks a few crystals round, anoints the bloody windows, and waves a bit of smoke around, and the demon's gone. No, trust me, it doesn't work that way. I'm just going to reiterate what I've said from the beginning, is that clearings, cleansings, and smudgings only get rid of residual energy. They don't get rid of beings or external beings. They get rid of stagnant energy 9 times out of 10 that humans have left behind. Blessings, so you're getting rid of something with a clearing, a cleansing, and a smudging, and with a blessing, you're inviting something into the property, i.e. well-being, happiness, love, goodwill to the people who live there, and the space with where they live. Okay, so
to plug a TV show sort of related to this, I think it was the Oliver House in the US. Kindred spirits went in, and there was a story about a zombie boy. So everyone was looking for the zombie boy, and the residual energy or spirit of that place would just take the role of it, because, like, yeah, I get a reaction. But then they made up a completely different story and had people come in and start investigating, and that new story came about. They made up something about a 12-year-old boy that fell off a horse or something. It was completely not related to zombie boy. And then the residual energy or spirit of that place took on that role, because, you know, people were looking for it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to be this now.
Well, now you're kind of getting into the realm of thought forms, which people create with their own energy based on their intense belief of that occurring in that property. That's a whole different kettle of fish. We're not going down that road. So blessings won't rid spaces, they won't rid people, and they won't rid objects of attachments, of ghosts, of spirits, of entities, of elementals, of demons, of astral beings. Okay, they just won't. As I said, doing a blessing will quite often agitate. If there is something external there, it will agitate whatever is there, and it might calm down for a while, but then it'll come back with a huge vengeance normally. And as I said, often much worse than what it was before the person came in and blessed. And if you don't actually believe that, there's plenty of cases out there that state that's what happened. We got a priest to come in and bless the house. It calmed down for about 3 weeks, and then boom, everything went crazy. So this brings me to banishments. Now, this is actually quite a heavy subject, and you hear it on the TV programs. Oh, we're going to banish the entity that's here, and they say a few words. Yeah, absolutely right. Colette's just said something. The internet and TV seem to want to promote all spirits as demons. Yeah, they do. And believe you me, they're not that prolific in our world. Ghost hunters would often discover the haunted lore of a haunted building. Most of the time, full of it. They debunk heaps of places that have stories like that. Yes, they have, Cameron. You did right. Absolutely did right. So let's go on to banishments. So we're talking about going from a level 1 to a level 5 here. And while I've heard of banishments being explained as very heavy duty cleansings or clearings, they're a lot more complicated than that. So in occult and magical circles, they are a means of forcibly removing unwanted, chaotic, or impure forms of entities, energies, or influences of all kinds from a person or a space. So there's a common theme here, right? Spaces, people, objects. This is what we're pretty much hearing with every single ceremonial or ritual aspect here that we're talking about, because as I stated, all of these are ceremonies and rituals. And yes, Zach gets possessed every episode. Does he ever?
It's amazing.
It's
incredible. How many times he's been possessed and not died? Because supposedly if you invoke a spirit inside you that's not good, you're supposed to die and it moves on to the next host.
So again, these banishments that are performed, they're a ritualistic practice. So they can be used as a single practice, or they can be used as part of a wider ceremony. And I'll try and explain that in a little bit more in depth. They're normally used by ceremonial magicians and magical practitioners, and they're used on themselves and the space that they're going to perform their ceremony or ritual in prior to performing it. Okay. They heavily incorporate the acts of visualization, invocation, and symbolism. So you'll stand in a certain stance. I can't give away too much here, but you'll stand in a certain stance, you'll say a certain thing, and you'll visualize a certain thing, and you'll use a certain symbol. And then you'll change your stance, you'll use another symbol, you'll say another thing, and you'll use a different visualization. So it's all wrapped up in the same package. Okay, so a banishment is nothing like a clearing, a cleansing, or a blessing. It's way, way different. So there's loads of different kinds of banishment rituals out there, but the most common rituals that are used are the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. Sorry, I can't get my words out. Lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, or it's called the LBRP for short. The lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram is another one that's used, and the star ruby is another one that's used. And different magical orders and ceremonial orders will use different banishing rituals depending on what that particular order ascribes to. These aren't rituals that have been designed in the 19 whatevers. A lot of these rituals are very, very ancient rituals and stem from places like Mesopotamia and loads of different places like that. So
I'll just stop you quickly there. Like, a funny comment from Cameron about a possessed toilet. One of the places I've investigated many, many times, one of the bathrooms was supposedly haunted and had some weird things happen in there, apart from normal bathroom things. So you can potentially have a possessed toilet, I presume.
Are you serious? A possessed toilet?
Well, the bathroom was a weird place in this building. It was
you know what? There's absolutely no reason why not, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it was originally a bathroom, because these premises were very old. They would have been an outhouse.
Well, that actually could have a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah, that could be someone's room or closet or something.
Yeah, exactly. Previously, it very well could have been. So with banishments, there's also another ritual called the Greater Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. This is a really elaborate banishing, and it's an incredibly powerful version of the LBRP. It's normally utilized before much more serious, advanced, and complex magical workings are undertaken, and therefore it's like a component of a wider magical working as opposed to being used as a standalone ritual like the previous mentioned rituals, if you get what I mean, okay? So banishments are used to forcibly rid a space or a person of a pesky, negative spirit, entity, or energy, and if performed by someone correctly who actually knows what they are doing, they are always successful. Always successful. But in saying that, there is a danger to the person that is conducting the banishing if not properly trained and prepared. And for that reason alone, banishments shouldn't be conducted by just anybody. Occult students are rigorously tutored by those with decades and decades of experience in performing these rituals. And they do this for an extended period of time, which could be months or could be even a couple of years. And the student is expected to perform these banishing rituals on themselves and their space on a daily basis for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but I seriously implore anybody that's not trained in these ways and this knowledge to just stick to doing clearings, cleansings, and blessings. And if you come across something that is particularly stubborn, then call on someone who does have the experience and the training to deal with it. I'm only mentioning it here because of the simple fact that it's an incredibly effective method for ridding properties and people of chaotic or nefarious energies and entities. And it's really great for removing pesky astral entities, which I'll talk about in a minute.
We have touched it on, like, I think Paranormal 101, that with to do with like house sort of investigations or private investigations, that there's a lot of mental health involved. So someone might think, or a group of people might think, that someone is possessed, or they have a negative spirit in them, but really it could be a mental health issue. There was a case in New Zealand where a lady, she was drowned while being exorcised, and she died.
Thank you for mentioning that.
And that was,
and that's recent.
Horrific for everybody. It was only a few years ago, and she definitely did have a mental health issue.
Yeah. So, which brings me to the next point, which is exorcisms. This is a huge topic, and I'm not going to go in too deep into this because this is a whole podcast episode on itself. And although I've done a lot of research into this, I've never performed one. I am not trained to perform one, and I would never, ever perform one for that reason and that reason alone, which is the reason why, unless you've been trained to do these banishings and you've undertaken serious study from somebody who knows a lot more than you do, then I don't recommend doing a banishing either. So exorcisms have been conducted. They've been around since the first millennium BC, and they originated again in Mesopotamia, which is now known as Iraq to the rest of us. So when we mention exorcisms today, pretty much everyone thinks of the Catholic Church, right? But Anglican and Orthodox churches also perform exorcisms. Excuse me. According to the International Association of Exorcists, and yes, there is one, it's a Catholic organization, they have over 900 exorcists in 58 different countries throughout the globe that are authorized to perform exorcisms. So whether these are exorcisms on dwellings or exorcism on people or both, it's not mentioned. So exorcisms do fall into two distinct categories. And this is the first thing that the exorcist needs to determine. Is it the space that requires exorcising, or is it the individual that requires exorcising? So is the building possessed by whatever, or is it the person that's possessed by whatever?
So yeah, Cameron has actually raised an interesting point. We probably all remember the story about the divot box. I don't believe they brought anyone in to try and clear it, or, and it should have been like a rabbi or someone of the Jewish faith, even though it was fake. That's probably why
I was just going to say, it's been debunked.
But it was an interesting experiment for the guy that first sold it to other people and had like Zach and I think Post Malone, the rapper.
Yeah.
It's a good old persuasion or psychosomatic experiment where people think something is possessed and they touch it or they do something not supposed to do with it, and then they're like, oh, now all this bad luck is happening, which is not actually tied to the object or the energy or whatever. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's why I was quite suspicious.
Kelly Bell's quite right. It was the movie that's made it popular. Yep. Just like the movies and the TV that's made, oh, you know what? Get rid of a demon. Do a clearing. I can get rid of ghosts. I'll do a smudging in the property. Yeah, no, don't work. So what was I saying? I was saying, oh, that's right. That the exorcist first needs to determine whether or not, I wonder if I can get away with murder and blame it on a doll. Exactly, Cameron.
Only if you're Chucky.
So the exorcist first has to determine, is it the person that needs exorcising or is it the space that needs exorcising? And the ritual that's done for both those two things is very, very different. It's like chalk and cheese. It's incredibly different. Okay, there's different prayers that are uttered. There's different actions that go down. There's different processes that are followed. Exorcisms never get carried out by untrained individuals, and for the reason that Natasha just said, to be quite honest. Look at what happened in New Zealand only, 12, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? I can't even remember how long. It wasn't any more than 20 years ago. That's a dead cert. So exorcisms shouldn't be carried out by anyone that is an untrained individual, just like banishings. And this certainly shouldn't be carried out on a person until that individual person has been tested, gone through rigorous testing by a qualified psychiatrist, not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, to eliminate any mental health issues or conditions that could be present in that person. And that is what the Catholic Church will do. It's so hard to get an exorcism on an individual via the Catholic Church. The amount of hoops you have got to jump through to get it sanctioned by the bishop for it to actually be conducted is huge. And one of the things that has to be done is a psychiatrist must go through rigorous testing with this person to make sure there are no mental health issues present in the individual. If the psychiatrist clears them, then they'll look at it. But that's one of the things. But that's actually a long way down the track too. It's not one of the first things that's done. So they go through an incredibly rigorous screening process. It's easier to get an exorcism performed on a dwelling and get it sanctioned by the bishop, because these all have to be sanctioned by the church before they're carried out. The individual priest can't just go willy-nilly and do it. He's got to go back to his hierarchy and he's got to lay a case for it to happen, and he's got to get the okay before he can go ahead and do it. So getting the okay for doing a dwelling or a property is so much easier than getting the okay for getting it done on a person.
So with regards to that, what are your thoughts on Ed and Lorraine Warren? I don't know if they were sanctioned or not by the church.
No, they're not sanctioned by the church. I'll tell you that right now.
Because they weren't priests Well, no. Lorraine was not a priest. No. So I wonder how that works.
All they did was they had contacts within the church or within the Catholic Church. But let's remember here, there's different kinds of Catholic Church.
Yep.
We're talking about the Roman Catholic Church, whether or not they had ties to a Roman Catholic priest. I don't know if he was Roman Catholic, or whether, I think there's about another 2 or 3 different types of Catholic now. I know there's like the New Catholic Church and all this sort of carry on. Or
Coptic Christians, which
yes, all those types.
Adults.
Absolutely.
There's a whole screed of them.
Yeah, there's plethora of them now who have broken away from the Roman Catholic Church and pretty much just started up their own type of stuff. So first off, before they would even get be able to get any form of sanction, they would have had to first conduct a blessing unsuccessfully. And as I've said to you before, blessings will often nullify activity for a very, very short period of time, but the activity to then return with a vengeance, often way worse than it was prior to the blessing being carried out. If you're interested in the subject further, I would recommend that you look up a documentary on YouTube that features the Vatican exorcist Father Gabriele Amorth, who is reputed to have conducted over 6,000 exorcisms in his time as the chief exorcist of the Vatican. He unfortunately has now passed away. I don't know who the chief exorcist is now, but I've linked the video down in the description. But keep in mind, you will have to change your captions because it is all in Italian, and it features his last exorcism. So even the captions were coming up in Italian when I first watched it, so I had to go in and change them to English captions to get them to translate, because it won't automatically translate into English.
6,000 sounds like a lot.
6,000 in his time. He was damn near 90, I think, though. So if he's talking about 70 years as an exorcist in Italy, that would probably work, because they do quite a few in Italy. And keeping in mind that this isn't necessarily on people either.
So it's like 60 a year.
Yeah, that'd be about right. Now you go 60. And have a look at what goes on in Italy. There's a lot of, because Italy's predominantly Catholic, and I mean predominantly Catholic, there's a lot of supposed possessions.
There's a fantastic line in the original Beetlejuice where Juno tells the couple that thank God you didn't die in Italy.
Well, that's pretty much it, yeah. So that's pretty much all the knowledge that I can give you on these things. Yeah. But I think the other thing that people have to realize as well, and this is another thing that the TV programs, as someone, I think a few people have said tonight, everything's a demon. Just because you come across something, or you come across a property and there's a vibe in the property, and I mean, Tash, I'm sure you felt that in some property that you've come across before. I've felt it in a property or 6 that I've been into. But what that vibe is, and you know what? Because it makes us feel uncomfortable, I think a lot of the time we automatically ascribe something negative to it. It's actually been my experience that a lot of the time it's not necessarily something negative, just because you're feeling way uncomfortable, just because you're not sure about what you're feeling and your body goes into fight or flight. And just because you're unsure of what you're feeling, you start feeling scared, people put a negative connotation onto that and say it's a demon. Do you know what? A really pissed off spirit could be confused very easily for a demon.
Yeah.
An elemental can be confused very easily for a demon.
I'll just interrupt and I'll plug Kindred Spirits again. There was one of their investigations where they went to an old house, and it was owned by a very old Polish guy that built it from scratch, and they were doing renovations, and they couldn't understand why certain things were happening, and it felt really negative and oppressive, and it was like sort of like a misunderstanding. This guy had built with his own two hands this house, and he saw that this couple had come into his house and just started ripping out what he had built. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, because they have psychics that supposedly fill in the blanks, plus they have Annie Bruni doing the historical stuff. But it was definitely owned by an old Polish guy, and they had someone come in and talk to him in Polish, and it seemed to have an effect. So they didn't effectively banish the spirit. They just communicated with it and were just explaining, yes, we realize this is your home, but this is also our home. And somehow came to some understanding where all the negative things that were happening in the house suddenly ceased. Sort of an understanding. So that's another way to go around it. You don't have to banish or exorcise or bless the house. It could be something as simple as you're encroaching on their land or their territory or their house. And you just have to. He didn't speak English. Yeah, that's right. So they had to speak to him in Polish to make him understand. They brought, I think, his great granddaughter in or something to explain.
I think I saw that episode too. It was quite interesting actually. But this is another reason, and another complete and utter reason why you've got to know what you're dealing with before you start taking actions. So if it's my grandma in my house and I'm feeling uncomfortable or a little bit scared because I know there's something here and it's making me fear, pushing me out of my comfort zone, and I automatically go to the negative side because I am feeling scared and say I've got something negative here. It could be my great grandmother that's pissed off because I haven't been following her advice on something, or I've stashed something of hers away and it should be out on the mantelpiece. And because she's pissed off,
wash the dishes, or you didn't fold the clothes properly.
Exactly. And because she's pissed off, I'm automatically assuming that's a negative being when it's not. So you need to know what you're dealing with before you start taking actions against what you're dealing with.
Oh. So we've got a really good question here. How do you find someone who can do banishings, and would it be harder on the spirits who are mentally deficient? Yeah, like if you go to asylum where a lot of the people were non-verbal, like how does that work?
In respect of what? Trying to get rid of them?
Yeah, say if they...
If I went to an asylum and there were spirits in there that were non-verbal, I'd be leaving them alone because I'm encroaching on their property, as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't be doing anything like that. I wouldn't be doing anything remotely akin to a banishing unless it was in my property, or unless I was 150% sure it was something quite nefarious in somebody else's property. And that's where I come back to, I need to know what I'm dealing with before I start putting actions in place and deciding what I'm going to do about it.
Right. So say for this scenario, a lot of the asylums had like a high security wing for offenders, and most offenders do have a low IQ, naturally. So not all of them, but most that end up in asylums. Like, would you look at banishing or cleansing the place for the new owners? So say they bowled the old asylum and they're trying to put houses there.
And they're still hanging around?
And they're still just chilling in their cell block.
Would I be banishing them?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, would you be doing anything to remove that sort of residual negative energy? Not necessarily demons or anything like that, but just those places do have a residual sort of negative feel about them.
If it wasn't taking a form, we're just talking about atmosphere and energy and creating an atmosphere, then a banishing wouldn't be required. A clearing would be required and a blessing would be required. But if you're talking about a lot more than just an atmosphere and an energy, and there is actually an external being there, whether it be the spirit of somebody who was once housed in that asylum and has remained after their death, then I would see where explaining would go with that. I would try and get a medium to see if they can make contact and explain what is going on, what needs to happen moving forward. And if that didn't work, then yeah, you'd be looking at a forceful removal. Yes, because you know what? Again, 9 times out of 10, it's really unhealthy for living human beings to be within the same space as a negative, dead once human being.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Junkers.
And how would you find someone who can do banishings?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one because most of these people who can do them keep their heads pretty low. It's not like, it's kind of like real mediums don't stand there and scream it from the rooftops and have YouTube channels and Facebook pages. They do their thing very quietly and normally don't like to do their thing and have to be kind of twisted-armed into it, strong-armed into it. Your family's bought a farm with added residents of a spiritual nature. Okay, so what are we talking about? Are we talking about once alive people that are dead? Are we talking about elemental beings, i.e. land rights, land spirits? Earthbound elemental, well, not earthbound, but earth spirits, i.e. elementals? What are we talking about? See, that's where I'm saying you've got to figure out what you were talking about, because if you're talking about an elemental, you will never banish an elemental.
Could they be cryptids? Like
cryptids even, and you'll never banish one of those either. You can put certain protective barriers in place, yes. And again, a magical practitioner would have to do that. Physical touches that are unwanted from spirits who were, okay, so they were once living people. So we're talking about the spirit of a once living human being. Okay. I would actually get a medium in to see if they can make contact first, a reputable medium, to see if they can make contact first. And I would also, they've bought a farm with added residents. So those added residents, those IHC once living people, were they living on the farm? See, this is all the sort of stuff that people need to know before they go in and start dealing. You've got to have a real clear picture.
Maybe a workhouse for them. Give them something to do during the day. So right. It was tedious.
You've got to build a real clear picture of what you're dealing with and why you're dealing with it before you start actually dealing with it or dealing to it, if you like. I would say try and get a reputable medium in to see if she can reach out and talk to them and convince them to toddle on themselves. That would be the better way to do it, because forcing anything out isn't particularly nice. And we're talking about once alive, intellectually handicapped people. We're talking, really delicate. If I want to, and I'm going back to ethics here, I would definitely get a medium in first, because trying to just force them out of what was their home when they're confused and they don't understand where they are, what's going on, and possibly even the fact that they are dead, would be a really good idea to get a medium in that could speak to them, or potentially try to speak to them and explain to them what's happening. Because you got to remember that a medium doesn't speak to them like we're speaking to each other now. She kind of connects mind to mind, so words aren't needed.
Sort of another thought, like, again, it's perceived negatively. Like, obviously people don't want to be touched if they don't want to be touched, but it could be residual energy where these people are just doing what they did on a daily loop, because they would have had a very set schedule to not make sure they didn't get confused and all that jazz, and that they had a reasonable level of life. So they might not actually be doing it on purpose. You're just in their way.
In saying that, if they are a residual energy, if they're actually a residual energy, they wouldn't be interacting with humans, because any residual energy that's left is normally like a replay, a loop, and they don't interact with you. They'll walk right through you if you're in their way. And they won't look at you. They won't even recognize the fact that you're there. It's almost like two dimensions clashing at the same time, the dimension in which you're in and the dimension in which they're in. But if they are physically touching, then yeah, you probably have got something that is more than of a residual nature. You've got a bona fide spirit that's trying to interact with human beings. And it could very well be just the simple fact that they are very confused and they don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, they didn't know what was going on when they were alive. They're certainly not going to know what's going on now that they're dead.
Maybe they're nonverbal, and it's just some way to get your attention.
Even that. So again, a medium, if they are a psychic medium, can speak to them, because you get different types of mediums. Everyone hears about psychic mediums mainly, but there's different types of mediumship out there. There's trance mediumship. There's all sorts of different types. So you would need to get a psychic medium that would be able to talk to them psychically and connect with them psychically to let them know what's gone on and try and cajole them to hop over the bridge. To pay the ferryman, catch a ride to the other side, pretty much. And yes, one didn't know he had passed. Yeah. So that's the thing. A psychic medium is going to be your go-to there. Physical mediums, they won't be very helpful in this respect. Trance mediums won't be very helpful in this respect. You'll need a psychic medium. Excuse me. Any other questions?
So does anyone else have any questions?
I'm no expert on any subjects. Like I normally say, I know what's my saying? I know more than most and less than some. So there's always.
I always say at work, I know nothing about nothing.
My boss just says I'm just a training guy. I don't know anything. But yeah, I know more than most and less than some. So there's always someone out there that's got more knowledge than you, that's been doing this sort of thing longer than you, that's been excuse me, involved in spiritual aspects and magical and ceremonial aspects longer than you, or has done deeper dives than you into certain subjects. And then there's a lot of people that have just skimmed across the top of subjects and have a handful of information on it. So yeah, that's my favorite go-to. So I don't know everything about everything, and I don't know everything about the topics I've just spoken about, but what I've spoken about on these topics is from my experience and my practices going back 45 years of delving into this area and working in this area on a daily basis for years and years and years and years. And it's got nothing to do with paranormal investigating, by the way. No. I'm only talking about this in the sense of paranormal investigating because of all the TV programs that are out showing all this crap happening when it's all being done incorrectly and for the wrong reasons, and it's not going to actually get rid of what they're saying it gets rid of, but it makes for great TV.
So. Yeah, it's mostly for views. Like, we've got to make up the story and we've got to make things happen, and then we've got to, even though some of the history is correct,
we'll just make up the rest of it and fill it in.
Make up the story and fill in the gaps, and then because these people film for at least a week in these programs.
No, Cameron. Yeah. Look at Cameron's question, Tash.
So I don't need an SB7. No, you can make your own.
You can actually.
With an FM radio if you're really interested.
And Cameron, you're smart enough to do it. You know about computers. You'd be able to do that. No problem.
If you can solder, you can do it. I've done it with one. Just for fun.
What I wanted to ask you, Tash, just while I've got you, I know this is way off the point and the topic that we're talking about. Yeah. But your Phasm camera, is it a full spectrum?
Yes.
How do you find it?
Great, especially in the dark.
Yeah, I want to get
me up everything and everyone, and because it uses UV and also IR light. So obviously you have the full spectrum and visible light, but obviously in the dark there's no visible light.
And is that without the separate light attachment at the top that you bought for it, or is that including that light attachment?
It's better with the light.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
It illuminates the whole room and corridor or whatever's within range.
Yeah, you see for a long space too.
So you got long wavelengths and short wavelengths. So of light that we can't see, and it picks up everything.
Cool, thank you.
I'm just better than a normal night vision one because that's
I'm just looking at buying a digital camera and a full spectrum camera, and I know you can make your own full spectrum cameras, but I just want to buy. I think the Phasm would work well because I've got that light that goes with it, so I may as well get the. Can ghosts pull out words on the speaker? No.
No,
I'm going to say no.
It's debatable if that method works, but then again, if you wanted to try it, you could always try it, and you don't necessarily need an SB7. There are apps. I know we discourage using apps, but if you don't want to spend a lot of money on an SB7 or SB11, I believe they're making now, why not use an app that's for free?
What you got to remember with this tech is that a lot of it, when we're talking about these spirit box or ghost boxes, programmable words in there. They're pre-programmed. So it's like a database of 1,000 words or whatever, and that's all you're going to get out of it. No, I mean that device that GHI used. It uses EM that ghosts to interact with to bring words out on a speaker to form sentences.
Like a geophone. Not an SB7.
Yeah, I think he's talking
about
spirit
boxes, and then you have a geophone, and then there's another thing. Just trying to think of the name of it. That's often used on Project Fair. The Obulus. Is that what you're talking about? The Obulus. Which you can program with anything you like prior to an investigation if you're doing a TV show. So if you know where you're going and you know the history, then you can again use that to put a narrative and
forward. Yep,
put on
absolutely.
A show, basically.
Put on a show.
There's also geophones as well. I'm a bit dubious about those as well.
Which cost about $2,000 to purchase, so I'm not. The puck.
The puck.
The paranormal puck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Kelly. We've gone off on a tangent. We're talking about equipment now and not getting rid of ghosts. Sorry.
Talking sorry. So that we get rid of them, basically, would be our point.
Yeah, well, why would I want to get rid of them? I need someone, we're going in there to try and find them. unless someone says get rid of them. I mean, part of it is trying to find out if there is something there, and if there is something there, what are we dealing with? And then we can look at bringing someone in to get rid of it if there's something to get rid of. Proving that they're there is part of getting rid of them. No, not necessarily. You don't have to get rid of them. Once you prove that they're there.
You can leave them alone. You can come in and talk to them and try and interact with them and stuff. You don't necessarily have to get rid of them.
I mean, I've been going into one place for 2.5 years on a regular basis, and we've not attempted to get rid of them at all because we're using it as a research venue, and the people that are working there don't want them to be gotten rid of. So it's not like come in and get rid of them for me. And I mean, and that is one of the things that we do when we first go somewhere. We ask people, what is your expectations from our visit? What do you want achieved from us being here? And if they go, and believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, most people go, A, I just want to know what's here, or B, I just want someone to confirm that I'm not going mad and there is something here. And then you get 8 times out of 10, they won't come out and play for us anyway. So it's just the way the cookie crumbles. Or they do what Barbara and I were talking about the other week. You pack up your gear, and as you're walking out with all your gear packed, you hear a disembodied voice, and no one's got a recorder out and going. Because I swear they stand at the back and they go, right, they're packing up now. Wait until they put everything away. 3, 2, 1. Say something. Go on, you say something. And then you hear the voice, or you hear a whistle. One or the other.
Yeah, I don't know. We did the group I was involved with when we were investigating. We never did any banishes or any blessings or anything like that.
I don't either.
Not that it's bad, but if you want to go in and show your intention to a potential space, then
it depends on what you're going in that space for. I'm not going in there to help these people get rid of these ghosts. I'm going in there to gather data for our research. That's why I'm going in there. So if you're an investigator, why are you going to investigate? What is your point for going out and investigating? And don't tell me it's to prove the existence of ghosts, because we're nowhere near being able to do that. And I don't think we will be for a very, very long time, if ever. So that is a pointless exercise in going out to try and prove that there is life after death, because that's not going to be proven by going out into haunted houses, because it doesn't matter what you capture or how you capture it, someone's going to rip it to shreds.
Yeah.
So my point is going out to gather data so it can support our research to say things like, I don't know, when we get a really high EMF fluctuation, we seem to capture an EVP at the same time. So there's some link between EVPs being captured on a voice recorder, a disembodied voice, or a voice being captured on a voice recorder. There's some link between that and a high EMF reading. Excuse me.
So we haven't had any more questions. Did we want to?
No, we haven't. So if there's no more questions, we'll call it a night. So hopefully everyone found that interesting. If not, I'm so sorry to be boring you to death.
This to get you to go to sleep if it's boring.
What's your question, Cameron? I lose my keys all over the house already. I don't need help. Can you investigate my place? I'll bring the wine. I don't. No drinking while investigating. That happens at about 4 o'clock in the morning. We crack a bottle of wine.
I don't even drink, really, so.
So there you go. Tash doesn't even drink.
Not a good pride.
Colette says she'll do that if she was a spirit. What, wait until we're all packed up and then say something as we're bloody leaving?
Yeah.
Too funny. All right, well, I think we'll call it a night. I mean, it's been really good having a few people in this time. So thanks to everyone who joined us. I think I saw 9 people in there at one stage. And hopefully spread the word, guys, about these podcasts, because, if we don't get many people in or we don't get many people watching them, then there really isn't much point to doing them. So, and yeah, we're only doing it to try and help people that are paranormal enthusiasts or wanting to get into investigating or other investigators and trying to bring you guest speakers. And as we're going to wind this one up, just next week, we've got New Zealand's own cryptid hunter on, or Fortean explorer, as he prefers to be called, coming on to talk to us about New Zealand's own Bigfoot, the Mohau man, and his research into that beast. And and what he's been up to in America and things like that. So that'll be really, really interesting. So that's going to be another live. So please make sure you've got yourself loads of questions to ask him. Although I'm sure me and Tash are going to be asking loads of questions anyway.
Yep.
But that's it.
That's it.
Thanks for joining us. We've only been going an hour and a half, but we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you next week, 8 o'clock, for another live with Mark Koppel, New Zealand's own Bigfoot hunter. Okay, nighty-night. Till next time.
All right, bye.
See ya.